Story 1. Not me, but my dad. One day he was in a department store chasing my older brother, who at this time was a toddler misbehaving. As he ran after him, he accidentally knocked into a woman and she fell over. He helped her up, and she turned around to face him. It was Princess Diana. Story 2. I tweeted a picture of Hugh Grant in love, actually with the caption, "He would have never treated us this way." Someone thought it was Tony Blair and commented, "What about Iraq?" I responded, "Hugh Grant did not invade Iraq." It went viral on Twitter and made its way to Instagram. It still circulates on Twitter every so often 3 years later. Story 3. I made a TikTok that got over 1 million likes. People sent it to me without realizing I was the creator. I once tweeted, "Danny DeVito was the worst thing to happen to Sonny, and I won't take it back because it's the truth." And he retweeted it. Story 4. I was in a video by Dunkey. He called my GameStop and I answered. It was the video of the Mario movie cast announcement. Story 5. I was on the Federal Bureau of Investigation's missing persons list for half a day, while also simultaneously being on their list as a suspected domestic terrorist. Story 6. I was a local celebrity in the early to mid-2000s. People would even ask for my autograph. I did stage plays, musicals, and similar performances. Now I am just a nobody. I cannot even get my children to believe me. I have shown them pictures, but they still cannot quite grasp it. Story 7. I wrote a song about Aldi, and Alsi copied it to make an advertisement for their special buys of the week and sent me a bag of all their fancy cheeses they sell. I went to a lawyer, but they said I had no case because I had said they could share my song on Facebook. I meant my song on Facebook. Story 8. A group of teenagers pranked me in a department store once, probably for their YouTube video or another social media platform. It was very cruel, and I felt deeply violated. Until today, I have been too afraid to look for the video to see what it shows. I suppose somewhere out there is a video of me, an angry old man being laughed at by teenagers, which is one of many reasons I am so tired of life. No one can leave anyone alone anymore. Story 9. My cousin's girlfriend worked for what was at the time the major New York City/New Jersey alternative rock radio station, 92.3 K Rock, Howard Stern studio at the time. She arranged for me and my cousin to come live on the air for a few minutes with two radio personalities. I remember before going live they told us the basic rules and that if we cursed on the air, they would punish us. This was around 2002. Story 10. I was on the radio show Wait Wait Don't Tell Me. It was repeated several times, so people at work thought I had just done the show. I made the audience laugh a lot, so I am quite proud of that. Story 11. I had a starring role on the corner of 15th and K Street in Washington, District of Columbia on Google Street View. That is global, man. Story 12. I was on British Broadcasting Corporation radio because I was studying abroad in Edinburgh and stepped inside an O2 store to buy a phone on my second day in Scotland. I had to do the Spider-Man hand motion and I won a super nice feature phone. This was before smartphones. This was great because I was also incredibly baked and very confused. Classic American Lost in the United Kingdom scenario. Story 13. As a 9-year-old, I asked the name of a 20-year-old Serbian basketball player who was eating at Burger Fi with his summer league team. Current day, 9 years later, that man is the best basketball player in the world, Nikola Jokic. I have his autograph on a plain piece of paper somewhere, which he signed 3 years before he even became an all-star. Story 14. I work in Hollywood and have been involved in several projects, but my favorite was during COVID-19. I arranged a screening of Rocky III for Sylvester Stallone. We did not work on the restoration, but we were the only company that could get him into a theater during lockdown. The company he had been working with had completely shut down and not opened their doors yet. So it was just Sylvester Stallone, me, the colorist, and a representative from Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer watching the entire movie while he commented and shared stories and anecdotes throughout. Story 15. I have a few. I have a comment on TikTok that got almost 800,000 likes. Paris Hilton liked and made a comment on my TikTok comment. Nicki Minaj has blocked me on Twitter, now known as X, as well as Instagram, for no known reason. Jeffree Star has also blocked me on Instagram. Sorry to flex so hard. Story 16. I went to The Price is Right, and the family friend I went with won the showcase. I got to run up to the stage and meet Drew Carey and some of the models. Another memorable moment was when Charles Woodson reposted my sister's picture of her and me in our Woodson jerseys on his birthday during the Packers vs. Raiders game 2 years ago. Story 17. Time magazine incorrectly reported the coldest streak in North America as being accomplished by the University of Calgary, when it was actually the University of Alberta's second Henday University residents. I was one of the participants in 1974. Story 18. I was in a youth group where we broke the world record for the most people to hold a Furby in 1 minute. Story 19. I was in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in Houston and was an all-star cheerleader. You had to take a physical test. We danced to I'm a Believer. It was really cute. I still have my pom-poms. Story 20. I made a comment praising Calvin Johnson as an outstanding wide receiver, which he was, and received a like on Instagram from Calvin Johnson for it. Story 21. When I was a child, I was interviewed by a local news station and told them I thought their weatherman did a good job. They used a clip of me in an advertisement for a few months, and I was recognized by strangers on the bus, at the mall, and elsewhere. The sad thing was I never saw the advertisement myself because we did not have a video cassette recorder and had bad luck trying to watch it live. Story 22. Back when YIK Yak was popular, I was known at my college as the Pink Scooter Kid because I rode a pink Razor scooter with light-up wheels everywhere. Story 23. In 1995, I was in a television commercial for an electronics chain in Japan because I was a non-Japanese person who could repeat some Japanese phrases and then end with, "Come on down to Yamada Denki." Story 24. A local reporter asked me what I thought about Pierre Poilievre, and I said, I don't know, he's good, I guess. I was quoted in the local paper. In my defense, I was 10 years old. Who asks 10-year-olds about politicians nobody has ever heard of? Story 25. I am still recognized for my blog after starting it over 15 years ago. About a month ago, a man working in Walmart said, "Hey, aren't you?" I was featured in World Wrestling Entertainment magazine 18 years ago, and literally the weekend after the issue was released, I got in line for a show. The man in front of me said, "Hey, you're that guy from the magazine. Never underestimate wrestling fans." Story 26. I handpicked concert tickets for my mom. Enrique Iglesias noticed her in the crowd and brought her up on stage. She thought I paid him to do it. Story 27. I was on the homepage of my flagship state university website for about a month. A photographer came to take pictures of a random lecture, and I signed a release giving consent for the university to use my image for promotional purposes. Story 28. Some of my answers on this subreddit were featured on sites like Cracked, BuzzFeed, Ranker, Thought Catalog, and a few others. Story 29. Not me, but my friend posted a picture of her dog with a slice of ham on his face on Tumblr, and a meme went viral because people thought the dog was severely burned. I still see the meme every once in a while. Story 30. I went to work one morning in San Francisco to find out the company had gone on strike. I picked up a picket sign and started walking the picket line. I was dressed for work in a suit. I remember a photographer snapping a picture. I looked in a local newspaper the next day, but it was not there. After the strike was over, one of the managers came up to me and said he had been on vacation in England when the strike began. He said he found out about the strike because he picked up a copy of the London Times, and there I was, right on the front page holding a picket sign. Story 31. I went into a home daycare that was on fire. I helped carry the children to a neighbor's house. I was mentioned in several newspapers and received a citation from the mayor. Story 32. I went on stage with Penn and Teller in Las Vegas to be their assistant for a few tricks when I was 9 years old. It was very exciting. Story 33. Successfully changed the name of our small city to Porkville for a day to celebrate a rib festival and wrote the proclamation titled Porclamation with my friend Bart. It was the funniest thing on the planet for about 11 minutes. Story 34. I took a photo that Google used for April Fool's Day. It was seen by possibly billions. However, they did not attribute me as the author and copyright holder. In fact, they stole the image, so close, I guess. Story 35. We used to do this event in Abbeyleix once a year, the Metal Fest underground Irish metal bands from all over the country playing all day. Back in the 90s, I think. Sometime after it finished, an Irish metal magazine was started, and a competition was in the first issue. I entered and actually won. The day came when the big parcel arrived. Abaddon Incarnate and Primordial t-shirts and a handful of CDs. There was one compilation CD from an Irish record label, and in the CD booklet there were photos. Just when I thought, that looks familiar. There's me in my old Venom long-sleeve shirt thrashing away in the crowd. Proud to be a metalhead still to this day, bald as I am. Story 36. I messaged Gino from 90 Day Fiancé because I thought I ran into him at a quick trip. He responded within minutes, laughing and saying it was his doppelganger. I then took a screenshot and posted it on a Facebook group that got a good 10,000 laughs. Story 37. I was with my son, who was about 6 months old at the time. We were in a tattoo shop getting ready for a gentleman's quarterly photo shoot with Will Ferrell. Someone walking by the shop looked into the window, saw what appeared to be people tattooing a baby, and called the police. The police arrived and said, "We received a report that this shop was tattooing a baby. We had printed Thug Life on his belly, and Ferrell was going to use a tattoo gun for 30 seconds. After explaining the situation, the officers left. So, it was not really my 15 minutes of fame, but my son Orion's. He was featured in Gentleman's Quarterly with Will Ferrell. Story 38. I posted a TikTok during the COVID-19 pandemic when I ordered a new personal computer. To this day, I still get likes on that TikTok. Currently, it has 4.6 million views and 388,000 likes. Story 39. In 1997, I met David Blunkett, the United Kingdom's Secretary of State for Education. Blunkett was blind, and I stroked his guide dog, who was called Lucy. Story 40. I feel like I'll get criticized for this, but our gender reveal video went viral. It was kind of crazy, actually. I'm a licensed fireworks supervisor in Canada, so we did a fireworks show to find out if my wife was having a boy or a girl. The finale was wired to an actual dynamite plunger, which we pushed to set it off. This was back in 2016, before gender reveals went extreme and before the one that caused a forest fire in California. It ended up going viral, and we received calls from NBC's Dateline, Inside Edition, The Huffington Post, and many other media outlets wanting to interview us. It was fun, but my wife hated all the publicity that came with it. Then the real extreme reveals started, and it lost its charm. I did it because it was a fun idea I had, and fireworks were something I had access to as part of my job. Realistically, it's a glorified hobby that I get paid for. Everyone loved it then, but now maybe not so much. Story 41. I was on live television as part of a church choir at Christmas time. I have also appeared on United Kingdom television twice and Belgian television once. Story 42. I appeared on a World Wrestling Entertainment pay-per-view event called Bragging Rights in 2009. The premise was a battle between their two shows, Raw and SmackDown. While milling about before the show, my wife and I noticed a cameraman and kind of followed him for a few minutes. Suddenly, he said, "Okay, I need 2 teams of people, Team Raw and Team SmackDown." Most people wanted to be on Team Raw, so I chose Team SmackDown, and he made me the captain. About midway through the show, they showed the segment with his camera panning back and forth between both groups. I tried to act as silly as possible, and I think I succeeded. Then, a few years ago, Robert Irvine brought the television show Restaurant Impossible to our town. We were able to get tickets, and I was interviewed during the taping. My interview made the final cut. Honorable mention. A writer friend worked my name into multiple articles in Mad Magazine. Honorable mention. I was interviewed by local news during our 7th grade science fair. On the broadcast, it showed my name with the title Science Student. Story 43. I was in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl a few years ago and got interviewed at our hotel by the local news for Fresno, California. I was drunk out of my mind during the interview, and am sure I was asked because they thought it would be funny. I never saw it, but hope the people who did got a laugh out of it. Story 44. Here in Canada, We have a discount grocery brand called No Name. Their approach is that the product packaging is all yellow, with a basic picture and the product name in black, such as coffee or cola. During the pandemic, my wife and I were grocery shopping when I came across a no-name barbecue sauce that was all yellow and said, "Grill," for grilling. It amused me, so I took a picture and posted it on Twitter. A couple of days later, No Name retweeted it, and it gained attention from Toronto-based blogs, which significantly increased my mentions. Story 45. I was on a morning television show in Canada for a capoeira demonstration nearly 30 years ago. I am feeling old. I need a new 15 minutes of fame at this age. I was in the newspaper a lot as a kid for swimming too. The newspaper now that is old-fashioned. Story 46. I have an app on my phone called INK. It is dedicated to fans of the band Ice Nine Kills, where you can make posts and share content, including messaging people. I once made a post to my friends and followers there, and Spencer Charnas liked it. I thought it was cool. Another time, I made a music mashup with electronic dance music songs that an artist named Bear Grylls liked and retweeted to his followers. Story 47. Suge Knight said, "Get out of here," to me when I bumped into him at the Beverly Hotel around 2011 or 2012. I was wearing a Snoop Dogg t-shirt. I think Snoop bought Death Row Records by that time. Story 48. 3 times spring to mind. 2 are related to appearances on television game shows in my home country. On one, my appearance was so controversial I was very young, and people felt the hosts pressured me into doing something, that there were calls into talkback radio and letters to the newspaper about how badly I had been treated. It was noteworthy enough that when I met the host of the show some years later, he referred to me by a related nickname. "Oh my God, you're XXX boy." I was also a very early contestant on my home country's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and was the first person to have a phone-a-friend ready to use an internet search engine. It went extremely badly and became quite famous. The other thing I would say is that a very well-known Fox News host once directly insulted me on live television, calling me, among other things, woke. Frankly, I want that written on my tombstone. Story 49. I have a celebrity stalker. She knows who she is, and I know she knows that I know. If you see this, Miss Blonde, I know and I accept and like it. Plot twist. Also, I almost hit Leonardo DiCaprio twice with my car, and I know he recognizes my face to this day. The second time was at the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Project site. I did not slow down, but he was lucky the camera crew walked onto the road with him. Story 50. Criticized Luke Combs years ago, long before he became successful. He got very upset, and we argued over direct messages for about 10 minutes. Story 51. Back when Yahoo Answers was popular, I wrote a nonsensical story called, "I Showed My Penis to This Cute Girl in Math Class. Now I'm in Trouble." It went viral almost immediately and was possibly the most reposted entry on that site. I coined the phrase "I became erection" in it, which seemed to be the most quoted part. It was surreal when I noticed it gained popularity. I was on the IGN forums about an hour later when I saw my own creation being linked. Then, I watched as the commenters slowly realized the author was one of their own. I search for it every once in a while and am always amused when I see someone recently posted it again. Story 52. I was in Zardoz, the famous and infamous Sean Connery movie from the early 1970s. In the final scene, I am the second child, after the baby, sitting on a rock between Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling. I was 3 years old. I met him again a few years later when I was an extra in the first Great Train Robbery, and he remembered me. Story 53. My wife and I had a news article written about our wedding, which then escalated to a British Broadcasting Corporation radio interview. This led to British Broadcasting Corporation East Midlands and Independent Television Central interviewing and recording the wedding. Story 54. Have rapped on stage with Master of Ceremonies Lars on 3 separate occasions. Once was at Slam Dunk Festival, which is my favorite United Kingdom festival. Also ended up on a backing track for Andy B and The World, which meant I am on the same album as band members from Goldfinger, Zebrahead, and Real Big Fish. As a ska fan, that is huge for me. Story 55. Somewhere, I do not know where, is a 30-second to 1-minute clip of me being interviewed just outside Boone Pickens Stadium while being asked about my thoughts on alcohol being sold in the stadium for the first time. Imagine a sweaty, beer-soaked college student wearing a crop-top Oklahoma State University shirt, reeking of Coors Banquet and very intoxicated while the Tulsa News Channel is there. Not my proudest moment, to be honest. Story 56. I am listed in the thank you section of an album. I was mentioned in the newspaper for something related to a train station. Story 57. My college held a competition where you play table tennis against an Olympian, and whoever gets the most points wins a Palm Pilot. I was up by 3 points during the match and almost won. I was the only person to be ahead at any point. I lost to the Olympian, but I did win the Palm Pilot. Story 58. I almost outmatched our third-grade teacher, Mrs. Oshiro, in chess. Nobody could beat her, and I had the whole class chanting my name. Story 59. Bridget Nielsen liked a random photo I took of an old theater on Instagram. I am distant cousins with the Everly brothers. Their grandfather is my great-grandmother's brother. Story 60. I had a viral video. I was dressed as Peppa Pig for a party, and the host captured some reactions as I watched their 6-year-old tear apart the baby Peppa piñata. Story 61. I earned a bronze medal at the National Taekwondo Championships for my age and class. This made me an Australian champion in martial arts until I retired the following year. It may not seem as impressive because there are not many people still competing at the age of 50 or older. However, it was a bucket list goal and I accomplished it. Story 62. I was a Pop Warner Little Scholar and got to go to Disney and meet Lynn Swan about 20 years after he retired. I was very popular in town at the time. Story 63. I played drums on Got the Time with Joey Belladonna from Anthrax. It was also on his drum kit. 15-year-old me could not comprehend. Story 64. I got my name in the newspaper for receiving a beautification award after volunteering at the local senior center for a summer. I worked in their garden, pulling weeds, planting flowers, and mowing the lawns. They did not even tell me about the award. I just found the article a little while later. It was a small publication in Alaska, so probably only a handful of people saw it. Story 65. Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger replied to my comment on Reddit. I completely forgot about that. Somebody was being a troll, and I said every party needs a pooper, which is why we invited him. Arnold replied and said something, but I really cannot remember. Story 66. I used to be a freelancer for Cracked.com. Millions of people read my articles and those I edited. I had the opportunity to work with many talented individuals who went on to write for highly popular shows. Story 67. I was on the track at the Indianapolis 500. Girls kept taking my picture. I couldn't figure out why. A couple of months later, I recognized a picture of some guys I was talking with at the race. They were the Jonas Brothers. I was unknowingly in thousands of people's photos. Story 68. Back in 2003, when everyone was going to war or supporting someone going to the Middle East, my mom and I were both featured by Good Morning America because of a story in the Army Times. They sent us to New York City, all expenses paid, because we were deploying at the same time, mother and son. We got to interview and be on live television. It scared me, but we both came back. My mom passed in 2015 due to cancer. I really miss her, my hero. Story 69. I was taking a break on a mountainside in Afghanistan during a military operation. I was informed a drone with a live feedback to Washington, D.C. would be passing through the adjacent valley. I saw it, waved enthusiastically, and was later informed the commander-in-chief was very amused by my enthusiasm. Story 70. Lost my tire on the busiest highway in North America. The tire hit a tractor trailer, ruptured the fuel tank, and I temporarily shut down Highway 401 in Ontario. Story 71. In middle school, I was involved with a girl on the school bus. When I got to high school, everyone was asking me about it. I became a local celebrity. Story 72. I posted a picture of a mask I had painted to look like the mask of my favorite band member. I tagged him, thinking he would see it. He liked my picture. I never thought it would happen. It was Johnny 3 Tears from the band Hollywood Undead. Story 73. I posted the video with the isolated vocals of Mariah Carey singing All I Want for Christmas at the Rockefeller Center tree lighting, where she was a little pitchy. It was shared on 30 Mile Zone and blew up to millions of viewers before it was removed. Story 74. About 10 years ago, J.K. Rowling retweeted me. This was before the controversial transgender issues she became involved in. I was thrilled that one of the most famous authors in the world was amused by my remark, and thousands of people saw it. Story 75. I have a couple of Instagram reels with over 1 million views each. They are not even of me, just clips from movies or television with captions I added. Story 76. Nothing. I have never been even close to famous for a single second. I have never met a celebrity. Story 77. A few years ago, the local zoo had a Facebook post highlighting their rhinoceros. The picture they used was taken from behind. I was one of the first to comment "dummy thick," and the zoo along with hundreds of others liked it. Story 78. The Madison Square Garden Instagram page messaged me asking to share a concert photo I posted. This was a month ago. I am still not over it. Yes, they actually shared it. Story 79. I currently have a video on YouTube with 5.5 million views, and I have no idea how it got there. I am not a YouTuber, I make no money from it, and I have never promoted it, yet it has 5.5 million views. It is just a random video I uploaded several years ago, and the view count keeps growing. Story 80. I called the music television show Loveline in the 1990s with Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew with a fake story. I made it past all the screening phone calls and was able to talk to both of them on the air. Story 81. Maybe 15 seconds. Sylvia Poggioli read a haiku I wrote for her on National Public Radio, back when I had Twitter. Story 82. I was interviewed on a local sports radio station in high school after a softball game. I felt very important at the time. Story 83. On several 1 to 2 minute occasions, I was interviewed live on the local news. In all cases, it revolved around a successful local sports team. Story 84. Once appeared on the Instagram of a fairly famous voice actor someone I know in real life, and suddenly about 15 fan accounts for their show followed me. A couple of them reached out asking how I knew him. It was very bizarre. Story 85. I was a Twitter baseball insider, loosely speaking, for about a month. My following grew rapidly due to posts from well-known baseball creators. However, things fell apart when my sources began providing inaccurate information, leading me to make significant errors. I am somewhat relieved that it ended. Story 86. I got the star letter in the 100th and 101st issue of Visualize back when it was better than it used to be. Story 87. I was on live television standing beside Billy Connolly while he gave a speech. Everyone at school saw me. Story 88. I was in a Game Grumps 10-minute power hour. They asked viewers to tell them what ink blots looked like, and I wrote, I never see anything in them. They all look like blobs to me. I legitimately laughed so hard when the episode was released. Story 89. I was on The Really Wild Show as a kid, and I have been on the radio 3 times. I also accessed backstage at a massive rave just by walking in. Story 90. I have ridden both types of camels, dromedaries, and Bactrian. That does not actually get me a full 15 minutes of fame at cocktail parties, but it is the best I can do. Story 91. I gave birth to 2 children 11 months and 17 days apart. For 17 days, both of my children were the same age. Story 92. There is a meme used in Family Guy where everyone goes absolutely crazy and throws all their drinks everywhere. I can see myself in Family Guy during the celebrations when Daniel Sturridge scored the winner against Wales in 2016 at Ashton Gate. Story 93. The closest I got was being seen urinating on a tree in the background of a news broadcast, while my aunt was being interviewed about a mysterious explosion in her neighborhood in Florida. I was just in the background going about my business. I think the neighborhood was called Hunter's Creek, but I can't remember the year. I was a kid at the time and had long brown hair. My second experience is that multiple artists used me as a model for a series of angels displayed in a gallery in Florida. I was also a kid then, so I don't remember the details. Story 94. Some friends and I made a local low-budget absurd horror movie called Murdersaurus, The Killer of Man. It was popular locally, and I even got recognized in public. Story 95. I once had season tickets in left field of a Major League Baseball stadium. During that time, I was frequently on local broadcasts when home runs were hit. Story 96. I had a job interview at Williams Racing, and Carlos Sainz walked past me and gave me and the group I was in a courteous nod. It was 7:50 a.m. on the day of Formula One Live when all the liveries were announced. Story 97. Someone posted a picture of Barack Obama planting cannabis, and I commented Barack Oganja. Felt like a celebrity. Story 98. My teenage friends and I convinced a small chip shop in southern Scotland to try deep-frying chocolate bars. Started with Twix, but Mars was the best choice. This is the area of Scotland with the highest rate of heart disease in the world. Not shocking. Story 99. I was on Channel 7 WABC out of New York City back in high school after we had a girl at my school die from tuberculosis. For anyone familiar with Channel 7 in the New York City area, Tim Fleischer was the reporter. While the camera wasn't rolling, he explained to us about transmission before the live news report. Nice guy. Story 100. I posted a guide on how to get modern controls for GoldenEye on Nintendo Switch. It was on a now-deleted Reddit account. Many YouTube channels and news outlets, including GameSpot, covered it. A famous professional gamer also liked one of my YouTube comments. Story 101. In 7th grade, I won the boys' 200-meter hurdles at track and field day. I grew up playing sports and had been cheered for before, but this was different. This was during a school day, and the entire school was let out of class to attend. So literally, my whole school was cheering for me. Story 102. I was once the leader of the best alliance in a video game and ranked among the top 800 players in the world. Story 103. I have a friend with a very rare skin condition. There are 3 documentaries about him. I have been in one of them for 3 seconds. The clip just shows us running, but some of my distant family members saw it. If you want to see the documentary, it is on YouTube. Just søgt, særlig sunne. It is in Danish, but the subtitles should be in English. Story 104. I was shot serving a homicide warrant on a high-profile case. I couldn't go anywhere for months without people knowing who I was. I did not pay for drinks for quite a while. Story 105. I almost had one of these moments. A car was reversing out of a coffee shop as I was pulling in from the street. The driver was going kind of fast and almost backed into me, but I quickly put my car in reverse and he missed me by inches. He then realized he was reversing into the street, took a minute to turn around, then pulled up next to me and rolled his window down to apologize. It turned out he was a National Basketball Association player. His friend, another National Basketball Association player, was still parked in his own car, laughing and waving at me before driving off. I parked and stayed in the car for about 5 minutes, flabbergasted, thinking about what would have happened if I didn't move in time, exchanging insurance with a millionaire National Basketball Association player. If the police had been called, I would have surely ended up on TMZ. Story 106. As a child, I won a $500 prize in a Leave It to Beaver lookalike contest. There were at most 3 other kids in the contest. Story 107. I regularly played guitar duo pub gigs with Marcus Mumford while at university before he dropped out to pursue a career in music full-time. Story 108. I made a TikTok that got about 1 million likes and people steal it and repost it to Instagram and other platforms. Story 109. There is a miniature version of me in a popular board game. The company was running a Kickstarter campaign, and I enthusiastically supported it. It raised a couple of $1 million when that was uncommon. As a result, they added me as a character in the sequel and expansion. I chose my favorite color, helped design the special power my character has, and they sculpted a miniature of me. Now, there are at least a few 100,000 little plastic versions of me on people's game shelves. Story 110. I have been on the Sports Network a fair amount for a hat I used to wear to Saskatchewan Roughriders football games. It was a combine. Story 111. More like 15 seconds, but on our local radio station, They had birthday wishes every morning. When I was about 7, my grandma had my name on there. Story 112. I was the first baby born at the hospital's new maternity ward in 1988. I was in the local newspaper and everything. Story 113. I had a TikTok video of my cat go viral last week. My husband got me a t-shirt to celebrate that says, "My cat is famous on the internet." Story 114. I don't know if it is a claim to fame, but despite having no ties to Hollywood or living near California, I have met more celebrities than anyone I know. I bartended at a high-end hotel where many touring artists, celebrities, and people of high social status stayed. I have met and served Conan O'Brien, Drew Carey, the Backstreet Boys, Gordon Ramsay, Charles Barkley, Coldplay, Billy Joel, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, among others I cannot recall. In a completely separate experience, when I was in my 20s, I was involved with a gentleman who wanted to make a sensual video. We decided to post it on a popular adult video platform. It received millions of likes and was one of the top 3 most liked videos on the site for a month or two. It was syndicated to other adult sites, and many people created their own videos inspired by mine. It was the most flattering experience of my life. At best, I consider myself completely average looking. Story 115. My Reddit post about a minor cozy game achievement was featured in a popular streamer's YouTube video for that game. It was more like 30 seconds of fame. Story 116. On YYZ from the Rush album Exit Stage Left, about 36 seconds in. That's me shouting, "Go on, Getty." I can't prove it, but I know it was me. Story 117. I posted an Overwatch League meme on Reddit. Someone stole it and posted it on Instagram, and my friend direct messaged me my own meme. Story 118. A poem I wrote was published in a poetry book. It was a class project. I do not remember the name of the book, come to think of it. It is a shame, actually. Story 119. Shinedown quoted my tweet and said it was the tweet of the week. They have been my favorite band since I was 6 or 7. So I told everybody when it happened. Story 120. My uncle has 3.5 million subscribers on YouTube, and I have a picture of myself with the gold and silver play buttons. Story 121. Years ago, I worked at a coffee shop that rhymes with ducks. I made a mocha latte with extra shots incorrectly, and the customer came back because he could tell by the taste. I fixed his drink, he thanked me, and then walked out. That customer was Ted Nugent, and I would make his drink wrong again if I could. He was nice to me in person. Story 122. I am confident I was the first person in the world to get the Money Stack Bacon skin in the Bacon mobile game. Story 123. When I was 8, I caught a 10-foot shortfin mako off the coast of Maine. It was featured in the local newspaper, but they used the picture of my cousin holding it instead of the one of me standing next to it. Story 124. I met Shaquille O'Neal when he tried to go incognito in Toronto and I tried to pass him my joint. It was everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, and it made the news in Toronto too. Story 125. My picture is on the first page of my high school's first yearbook. I was a freshman the year my high school opened. I was also the first person to check out a book at the library. I still have the receipt somewhere. Story 126. I wrote a science paper that was peer-reviewed and published. I proudly showed the magazine to my grandmother, trying to explain what I do. She bluntly asked what I was going to do for a proper job. Apparently, I should lay bricks or cut hair like the rest of the family. No disrespect to manual labor at all, but that article took most of a year to complete. That was the end of my claim to fame. Story 127. Software I wrote was on the cover of Time magazine after our 60-employee company was acquired by a huge conglomerate. My corporate overlords did not mention me, but I know it was me and my team. Story 128. 220,000 upvotes on Reddit. I was on top of the world. People I knew from school, hometown, and across the country reached out. It was a surreal experience. Newsweek ran an article. Butterscotch is still around and still causing chaos on the street. Story 129. I was on the local news for a few seconds when reporters were interviewing people who attended the Michael Jackson memorial. I left because I did not want to talk on camera. Also, I attended the Michael Jackson Memorial. Story 130. My high school classmates and I had our picture taken by a Boston newspaper photographer while we waited overnight for Bruins-Rangers playoff tickets, skipping school the next day. The following day, we were called to the principal's office. Out sick? What about this? He said as he tossed a half-page photo of us at the garden onto his desk. Moral: if you skip school, don't get your 15 minutes of fame with a photo in the newspaper. Story 131. I made a bet with the community managers of one of my favorite games on their Twitch stream about modifying it and won. That was fun. Also, I cannot prove it since it was on a previous account, either Onicide 101 or Omnicide 102. But I am the one who came up with the Dutch posting community's word for meme. Story 132. I made a post once where I was role-playing as Withers from Baldur's Gate 3, complaining about the size of my breasts. Someone paid for a cameo of the voice actor for Withers, Stephen Boxer, to read that post. Story 133. Multiple High Times Awards and Cannabis Cup wins pre-legalization, back when they truly meant something. Story 134. In the late 1980s, I was in the smelliest band in the world. I was coated in Limburger cheese, smoked fish, vinegar, sauerkraut, cheap musk cologne, pig manure, and occasionally my own urine. This was before the styrofoam goat filled with spaghetti and wet dog food was ritually slaughtered on stage with a double-bladed axe. In the 35 years since, I have yet to hear of another attempt. Story 135. Jay-Z pointed me out in a crowd of 60,000 people while he was shouting out people at his Comerica Park show with Eminem. I was in the VIP area, and he said, "I see you, homie, with the red hat." A few minutes later, David Arquette walked up and stood beside me completely randomly. Story 136. A well-known and highly accomplished professor, a true leading figure in my field, sent me a LinkedIn invitation during my master's studies, even though we had no prior connection. Story 137. I speak 3 languages. Once, when I was 35, a man rear-ended another man and I was the witness. No one spoke each other's language, so I had to translate everything for 15 minutes. Story 138. Won a geography B in 5th grade but still have trouble locating the clitoris. An ex who ended the relationship in a rather brutal way ended up being a well-disliked contestant on Ink Masters twice. Story 139. I made it into several mainstream media outlets in the United Kingdom in 2014 when I contacted the press to highlight a terrible translation of a sign at our new supermarket. I sent it to one online newspaper, which published it, and then dozens of other outlets started sharing the story. The store owners were not happy with me. Story 140. I defeated a former professional darts player with a world match play title in a leg of darts. It was the best of 5 format, and I was competitive in each leg, but I did win one from him. Story 141. My band's single reached number 5 in rock and number 3 in alternative charts on iHeartRadio's top and signed artist charts. It stayed there for over a year, got us into a few movies, on a few compilation CDs, some radio play, some larger festival tours, and kids singing along in new cities. We were peaking, just on the precipice of the next big leap in our career. After we were asked to go on a world tour with a very big band, our drummer quit because he was worried about money and supporting his wife. Then the singer left, also over money, as he had a new baby to care for, all within a week. That was the end of that chapter in my life. Story 142. This reminds me of when I said something on Twitter in support of Kim.com many years ago, when the United States raided his property and he faced copyright charges. Kim followed me. Years went by with me rarely using Twitter, but he still followed me. Then I noticed Kim suddenly promoting Russian views. I sent him a message asking why he was suddenly spreading Russian propaganda, and he blocked me. Story 143. Got featured on a Captain Flower stream where he was commentating Bronze League of Legends matches. Story 144. Once, I made a Tumblr post that cycled back to me with 500,000 reblogs. More personally, I had the highest attendance for a senior recital at my college in over 5 years. Story 145. I was interviewed during a Man on the Street segment for This Week in Baseball approximately 20 years ago, while at the Baseball Hall of Fame for induction weekend. Story 146. I was in a lip-syncing competition when I was a kid, and a photo from the local newspaper was picked up by the Associated Press and ran nationwide. This was in the early 1990s. Story 147. I got into a fight in a Heathrow airport bar with Oliver Reed. To be fair, he attacked me for not wanting to join him in a race to see who could drink 10 whiskeys and 10 pints the quickest. I was actually ending my shift and wanted to drive home. He went mental when I turned him down. The police were called. I did manage to land a good punch or two before it was broken up. The police did not even ask me anything. When they saw him, they knew what happened. Story 148. Found the lost treasure of Rip Van Winkle in upstate New York, a jewel-encrusted bowling pin. It was supposed to be worth $100,000 in 1989. Had it appraised by Sotheby's, it was only worth $17,000 at most. The treasure hunt was really designed to drive tourist visits. It is still sitting in a safe deposit box all these years later. Story 149. I won a $100 gift card to a skate shop from the Captain Chesapeake show. They also displayed my name during my birthday broadcast because I was a Captain Club member. Story 150. I was in a Bounty chocolate bar commercial. For kids were running down the beach. On the second take, they told the other 3 kids to slow down to my pace. Story 151. I was in a commercial in 1991 with Bill Cartwright, center for the Chicago Bulls during their first three-peat. I spent a day in a gym at a school in Chicago and filmed 4 drug abuse resistance education commercials. They aired during the 1991 National Basketball Association Finals. Story 152. I got to play with FaZe Jev in middle school on Mortal Kombat 10. I am the last person he plays in the video titled Redemption. Peak middle school moment. Story 153. Not much of a fame moment, but there was a Roast Me post that went viral and one of my comments was getting shared on it. I remember Maxim and Barstool having articles about it, and I think Maxim called mine out for being too cruel and also having a spelling error. I noticed for a while on Roast Me that people were using my roast on others, and I took it as a badge of honor. Story 154. I was the only child in the choir who could hit the tambourine on beat, so I became the tambourine player. It was quite an honor. Story 155. Had a playoff in golf. Myself and 3 people teed off on a par 3 hole. Closest to the hole wins. With over 100 people watching, I landed the ball within 2 inches of the hole. It was like the final hole of the Masters on Sunday. It was loud. I also had Ice-T comment on a tweet I posted, unrelated of course. Story 156. I created a free guided breathwork application and album that dozens of people have appreciated. Every one of those interactions has made me feel very fulfilled. Story 157. A small segment on Heartbeat, Tony Hart's art program on the British Broadcasting Corporation, back in the early 1990s. I was about 11 or 12 years old. I have spent many hours trying to find the episode online, but it seems it has disappeared forever. I still have the A3 picture of a tiger that he drew for me. Story 158. There have been 2 rant videos made about me by different people for different reasons. This was years ago, and YouTube took down the videos after I reported them because the creators asked people to harass me. These were fairly small channels with only about 30,000 subscribers, but I still think it was funny they chose to make dedicated rant videos about something a random person commented on some forum. Story 159. I won the 2013 Walt Disney World Photo of the Year. We take over 250 million photos in Walt Disney World, and mine won for the year. It leaked online through Tumblr, was posted on Facebook, and garnered millions of likes and comments. Story 160, poor one, but when Manchester United bought Aaron Wan-Bissaka for £50 million, I posted under the BBC post that for that money, I would be expecting 2 Bissakas. The BBC screenshot it, laughing about it, and it went a bit viral. Harmless enough. Story 161. I was at a concert when a girl a few rows away passed out and was being trampled. I picked her up and carried her out of the crowd. The lead singer saw what was happening. Once I got her to the emergency tent, a security guard met me. I was then invited on stage and received some cheers. After the show, I had a few drinks with them. Story 162. I was on the local news with some friends. We were driving around late one night and saw the back of a house on fire. We alerted the people in the house by banging on their front door and garage. They finally woke up and evacuated the house. We also banged on the neighbors' doors to make them aware. We probably saved some lives that day. Story 163. Well, I have an asteroid named after me. You can look it up in the National Aeronautics and Space Administration database, and there it is. I created a YouTube video that got nearly 20,000 views. Most only get a few hundred. I was interviewed by several local television stations when the first direct image of a black hole was released, even though I was only indirectly involved in the project. Story 164. I was on the front page of my local newspaper twice, both times for skipping school. Also, once for my dog killing pigeons after I let him into their wooden box. Almost a local celebrity. Story 165. My tweet about my daughter's birth went viral and was seen by over 5 million people. I detailed our lengthy in vitro fertilization journey, and it just took off. It ended up in a national newspaper and on local news. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.